Who's telling the truth about the capital gains tax? The debate over capital gains tax in Canada has intensified, pitting the Liberal government's call for equity against the Conservative Party's pushback. At the heart of this debate are Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, who represent two very different visions for Canada's tax system. The stakes are high, and the rhetoric is fierce, leaving Canadians to wonder, who's telling the truth about the capital gains tax?
0.13% of Canadians with an average annual income of $1.4 million will be affected by this change in any given year.
Mr. Speaker, if you are a small business owner, you have even $1 of investment gain, you pay this higher tax that the Prime Minister is promising.
What are capital gains? Capital gains represent the profit made from selling an asset, such as stocks, bonds, or real estate, for more than its purchase price. For instance, if you bought a stock for $100 and later sold it for $150, your capital gain would be $50. In Canada, not all of this gain is taxed. Instead, only a portion, known as the inclusion rate, is subject to tax. The inclusion rate and its importance. The inclusion rate determines how much of your capital gain is taxable. Currently, the inclusion rate is 50%, meaning half of your capital gain is taxed at your marginal income tax rate. However, the Liberal government has proposed increasing this rate, a move that has sparked significant controversy. The proposed changes suggest raising the inclusion rate to 67%, which would result in higher taxes on capital gains for many Canadians. The Liberal government's proposal, Freeland's equity argument. In her announcement of the proposed changes, Chrystia Freeland emphasized fairness and equity. She presented a thought experiment, urging the wealthiest Canadians to consider whether they want to live in a society where they enjoy luxury while the public sphere deteriorates. Her argument is clear. Those at the top should contribute more to maintain a just and equitable society. Freeland's equity argument is designed to appeal to the broader Canadian public's sense of fairness, positioning the capital gains tax increase as a necessary step to reduce income inequality and fund essential public services. But is it as straightforward as it seems? Who will be affected? Freeland has stated that only 0.13% of Canadians, those with an average annual income of $1.4 million, will see an increase in their taxes due to the changes in capital gains taxation. However, this figure only considers those who realize capital gains in a given year. Over a lifetime, it's estimated that 4.3% of tax filers could be affected. This raises questions about the broader impact of the tax changes, particularly on middle-class Canadians who might sell significant assets like a family business or farm. The impact on income inequality. The Liberal government argues that increasing the inclusion rate on capital gains will help address the growing income inequality in Canada. By taxing the wealthy more, the government aims to redistribute wealth and fund public services that benefit everyone. However, critics argue that the proposed changes may not go far enough in addressing the systemic issues that contribute to inequality. They also warn that higher taxes could discourage investment, which is crucial for economic growth. Poilievre's response and Conservative opposition. In a 16-minute video, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre responded to the proposed changes with a mix of skepticism and alarm. He referenced historical figures like Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin, although the connection to capital gains tax was tenuous at best. This approach has been widely criticized for its inflammatory nature and lack of substance. The use of such extreme examples may serve to rally Poilievre's base, but does little to clarify the real issues at hand. Instead, it shifts the debate away from the specifics of tax policy and towards a broader, more emotional argument against government overreach. Alongside his critique, Poilievre has promised tax reform if the Conservatives come to power. However, he has provided few details on what this reform would entail, leaving voters in the dark about what his vision for Canada's tax system actually is. This vagueness is both a strength and a weakness. It allows him to appeal to a broad range of voters who are dissatisfied with the status quo, but it also raises questions about his ability to deliver on such a promise. The Conservative Party has raised several substantive criticisms of the proposed capital gains tax changes. One of the most significant concerns comes from the Canadian Medical Association, which argues that the changes could make it harder to recruit and retain doctors in Canada. This is particularly concerning in rural areas where access to healthcare is already limited. Another group that has voiced opposition is the grain growers of Canada. They argue that the higher inclusion rate will make it more expensive to transfer family farms from one generation to the next. For example, an 800-acre farm in Ontario that generates $14.1 million in capital gains could see its tax bill increase by more than $1 million under the new rules. This could force some families to sell off parts of their land to cover the tax burden, undermining the viability of family farming in Canada. Public opinion on the capital gains tax debate is likely to be influenced by a range of factors, including perceptions of fairness, economic security, and trust in government. The Liberal government is betting that Canadians will support their equity argument, particularly in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, which highlighted the stark disparities in wealth and opportunity in the country. However, the success of this argument will depend on how well the Liberals can communicate the benefits of the proposed changes and counter the concerns raised by their opponents. If Canadians perceive the changes as unfair or harmful to the middle class, they may be less likely to support them. Pierre Poilievre's message may resonate with Canadians who are skeptical of government intervention and wary of higher taxes. His emphasis on freedom, coupled with his vague promise of tax reform, could appeal to voters who feel left behind by the current system. However, the success of this message will depend on whether Poilievre can provide a clear and compelling alternative to the Liberal proposals. Your support means the world to me as I'm just getting started here. Thanks.